Doug sees this team not every day, but he sees them a lot. Doug, do you agree with that? Is this team reeling right now?
I wouldn't say that. They've got a huge test this weekend, that's for sure, in Arkansas. It's really kind of the good news is that they control their own destiny. The bad news is Arkansas is hitting around 300 as a team and has an ERA right at 4. So that coupled with Cole Henry not making the trip this weekend, I expect this to be the toughest weekend of the season for LSU.
Cole Henry not making the trip for the third week in a row. I guess let's just start with him personally. Now that it's 3 weeks on the shelf, what do you think? What's your expectation for Henry now?
Man, I don't know. That's a great question. I'm not so sure what's going on. I mean, it was supposed to be 1 week to start off, then they pushed him back 2 to be as cautious as possible. This isn't good news for a third week now for him to be out. It's starting to remind me of Jaden Hill a little bit. It's just really bad news that he's not going to be able to go up there this weekend and help them compete because as I said, this is one of the best teams in the SEC that they're going to go up against.
Doug, it seemed like Mainieri last week and a lot of comments, if now, and I should be clear, this is me kind of maybe projecting a bit here, but if you're reading the subtext of when he was talking, it almost felt like he was like, maybe some of these guys need to toughen up and realize you're not going to feel perfect throughout the season. What's your opinion therein? Like, if a guy's not feeling right, should he sit, or do you have to kind of accept the reality that just comes with playing a full season of baseball?
Well, I don't know who's making the decision to sit these guys, whether it's Corey Couture, Paul Mainieri, the player, a combination of all three. But as a pitcher, there's a significant difference between being hurt and being sore. And a lot of times you don't know. Like the day after, the soreness is so intense that you think you may be hurt, right?
Yeah.
So I think part of the issue, especially with the younger guys, is to maybe educate them more on the difference between being injured, hurt, and sore. But look, I know Cole is as tough as they come. He's a kind of a throwback kid, so in his case, it's probably pretty intense because he's a kid that likes to get the ball and go out there and pitch. But I think that's part of it, T-Bob, is maybe that they don't know the difference yet between hurt and injured, or hurt and sore. But it's very concerning, and it's kind of been the story of the year all year unfortunately for this baseball team.
One of the most surprising things that I read last week was James Moran had an article in Tiger Rag, and he pointed out last weekend not a single starter recorded an out in the 5th inning. If you bring that to Arkansas, that could potentially end up brutal. If you had to name a single pitcher, a single guy on this staff that is the key to trying to take this series against Arkansas this weekend, who do you think kind of jumps to the fore?
Well, I think Eric Walker's going to have to pitch well, right? I mean, he's the only consistent thing right now coming for LSU, at least in the starting capacity. But he's improved every week over the last several weeks. His velocity's starting to tick back up there. He made one really awful pitch this weekend where he gave up an 0-2 3-run home run. Other than that, though, surgery was in session. I mean, he was locating both pitches on the corners. He was able to elevate. He was able to drop some in the dirt. So I think it really hinges on the performance of Eric Walker to be sure to get a win. Did Coach Mainieri name a starter in place of Cole Henry? Is it back to Hilliard?
No. TBD.
T-Roy's saying no. We're talking to Dougie Thompson here on Off the Bench. Shout out to my guys Cameron and Kane. Doug, remember, tell Cameron that I said that school is very important. Have a great day at school. If you do very well at school today. Looking forward to this week. Let's talk about the bullpen, Doug. Let's talk about the closers. Is Devin Fontenot, should he still be the closer on this team, or do you maybe think about moving him to extended release, basically switching him and Hess and making Hess your 9th inning guy?
Yeah, and I'm a big Fontenot fan. I think he's struggled a little bit here lately. So now that you have Hess back in the bullpen, it's definitely something you might want to think about, right? And don't forget about Todd Peterson back there either. I mean, he's one of those guys at this point with Hess and Fontenot, and also Beck in the anchor of that bullpen that I would consider running out there to start a game or two, just because he's done that before. But you guys nailed it. The starters have to get through the fifth to be able to get handed over to this bullpen. And I think the story of the weekend this weekend will depend on how well LSU starting pitchers are able to go out there and throw.
You starting to feel more confident with Garza behind the plate?
I like the way that Garza handles the pitchers. He really seems to have a good relationship with those guys. I like the way that he throws the ball down to second base. Yes, I am starting to drink the Garza Kool-Aid for sure. Not that Brock Mathis did anything wrong. It's just that I like to see Garza running balls out of the ballpark. I think 3 consecutive weekends in a row now he's hit a home run, and LSU could certainly use some more juice, especially down there at the bottom of the lineup.
Doug, one thing that became consistent in watching Mainieri's teams play was their ability to defend. And really, defensively, they've always been at the top of the league. What do you make of their struggles, and is there something that they can point to on just their inconsistency in the field?
No, I think it was just one of those weekends.
Yeah.
Josh Smith had a tough weekend out at shortstop, but if you look at the numbers, Paul Mainieri has always been one of the best infield coaches in the country. He's always had a loaded outfield, and I think that's the least of the LSU baseball team's worries is the way that they're playing defense. I think that'll come around.
What do you, so give us, if you can, kind of give us how you feel about this weekend. Like, do you think that LSU will take this series off Arkansas?
Well, the one thing they have going for him is that Coach Mainieri has always done really well there. It's like he's got Arkansas and Mississippi State's number and has for quite some time. So I tell you what, I'll say this. It's just like every other season here over the last 6, 8, 10 years. My gut tells me that it's going to be a rough weekend and it's going to be tough for LSU to come away with 3 wins. But if Paul Mainieri goes up there and is able to win the series, it wouldn't surprise me at all. They just always seem to turn it on at this time of year, headed down into the SEC tournament. So I'm hopeful that the one thing we saw this weekend, LSU coming back down 6 runs in the bottom of the 9th inning, that's a big deal. I mean, that shows a lot of character. So I'm really hoping that momentum offensively stays with them and they're able to early jump on some of this. Isaiah Campbell will be the first guy they have to get through, who's 8-1 this year. He's 5-1 in the SEC. He's one of the best pitchers in the SEC. I'm hoping that they're able to keep that offensive momentum going early into that Friday night game and score some runs. And hopefully tonight they can put some runs on the board and get in a good offensive mindset before landing in Fayetteville.
Yeah, I think I agree, man. Big confidence kind of momentum matchup tonight. We're talking to Doug Thompson here on Off the Bench. Take us into the locker room, Doug, when it's obvious that because of injuries, like for whatever, the starting pitching is struggling. You mentioned the offense. If you're one of those hitters, do y'all almost get together? Like in football, sometimes you'd have these offensive or defensive meetings. Do you almost get together and say, look, man, if we're going to win, our pitcher's struggling, like we're going to have to be the engine that drives this thing. We're going to have to get it done.
Yeah, I think there could be a conversation like that around the batting cages. I'm sure Sean Ochico is consistently challenging his hitters to put some runs on the board, take some pressure off this pitching staff, who's really, when you look at it at this point, been injured all year. I mean, they've always had a key guy out. So I'm sure that conversation has been had many times amongst the hitters. They're just going to have to go out there and do it this weekend at an Arkansas that's going to be a very tough place to play. It's one of the best stadiums in the SEC. And again, one of the best offenses they'll have to face all year. But I'm not going to count Paul Mainieri and the Tigers out. I'm going to learn from my past mistakes and hold out hope that they're going to be playing their best baseball coming down the home stretch like they always are.
Have a good call tonight. Tell Cam and Kane to have a good day at school. Thank you, Dougie.
Will do, guys. Thanks a lot.
Always. There he is, Doug Thompson, checking in from the LSU Sports Radio Network. He'll be on the call tonight, 6 o'clock.